An attempt to seek justice after World War II was done through law and legal prosecution. International and domestic courts conducted trials of accused war criminals, and in December 17, 1942, the leaders of the United States, Great Britain, and the Soviet Union issued the first joint declaration officially noting the mass murder of European Jews and resolving to prosecute those responsible for crimes against civilian populations. Original propositions included the executions of 50,000 to 100,000 German officers from Stalin. Winston Churchill suggested the possibility of summary execution or execution without trial of highly ranked officers. It was settled that criminal trial in a court of law would be most effective to avoid claims that the defendants had been condemned without evidence. Signed by the foreign secretaries of the governments of the United States, the UK, and the Soviet Union, the October 1943 Moscow Declaration stated that at the time of an armistice, persons deemed responsible for war crimes would be sent back to those countries in which the crime had been committed and judged according to the laws of the nation concerned. Major war criminals whose crimes could be assigned to no particular geographic location would be punished by joint decisions of the Allied governments. The Nuremberg trials were a series of 13 trials carried out between 1945 and 1949. Defendants whom included Nazi party officials and high-ranking military officers, along with German industrialists, lawyers, doctors, were indicted on charges such as crimes against peace and crimes against humanity. However, there had been difficulty in proper persecution due to the involvement of four major powers and governments in opposition to there only having been trials involving the laws of one single nation beforehand. Yet the Allies eventually established laws and procedures for the Nuremberg trials with the London Charter of the International Military Tribunal, which identified three categories of crimes: crimes against peace, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. It was issued on August 8, 1945, which also subsequently became an issue as a common defense strategy for the defendants was to pick apart crimes defined in the London Charter as examples of post facto law, which were laws criminalizing the actions of the defendants before the laws were drafted. In total, 24 individuals were indicted, along with 6 Nazi organizations determined to be criminal, such as the Gestapo or SS Secret State Police, as part of the major war criminals trials from 1945 through 1946. The subsequent trials from 1946 to 1949 had 12 additional trials at Nuremberg Palace, including the doctor's trial, in which 23 defendants were accused of crimes concerning the medical body and experimenting on prisoners. The judge's trial, where 16 lawyers and judges were charged with involvement in racial purity and implementing the eugenics law, and indictments concerning violence on camp inmates, atrocities against prisoners of war, and slave labor. Of the 185 indicted, 12 received death sentence, 8 with life in prison, and an additional 77 received varying prison terms. Most observers considered the trial as a step forward for the establishment of international law. Findings at Nuremberg led directly to the United Nations Genocide Convention in 1948 and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948, as well as the Geneva Convention on the Laws and Customs of War in 1949. In addition, the International Military Tribunal supplied a useful precedent for the trials of the Japanese war criminals in Tokyo from 1946 through 48. The 1961 trial of the Nazi leader Adolf Eichmann, 1906 through 1962, and the establishment of the tribunals for war crimes committed in the former Yugoslavia in 1993 and in Rwanda in 1994.